Show it off, Jawa. Okay, people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Tonight, I'm taking a look at the Hasbro Star Wars 40th Anniversary Jawa. Now, this is from Wave 2. I got this set from Dorkside Toys. Great guys to work with. Put my order in, they shipped it right out. I already have it, so that's very, very cool. Now, if you've been following me on these, I've been saying that I'm only getting the new characters in this line. I'm ripping them open because I need the Jawa, I need the Death Squad Commander, I need the Tusken, and that's all I needed out of Wave 2. Yeah, it doesn't always work out like that, but I will address that at a later time. Looking at the package here, it's vintage inspired, and I say inspired because they made some changes just to make it work with this line. But last time I did one of these reviews, there were some comments about the actual moving around they did from the vintage card, and that's moving the Star Wars logo up and beside the peg hole, and then moving the name off center. And I didn't quite understand why they did that. I mean, it's a big change. And on the vintage card, the Star Wars logo being in the center looks really nice. It looks symmetrical, you know, and I'm down for some symmetricalness. Symmetricalness? I don't know. It wasn't until I got my Wave 2 today that Chewbacca kind of put it all into perspective for me. You look at the Chewie card and it comes up nearly to the logo. So if they had brought it down under the peg hole and centered it, the color behind Chewbacca would have been covering the logo a little bit, and they definitely do not want to do that. So they moved it over for the larger characters and then did the whole line that way to keep it consistent throughout. And all of that makes me think, yes, the figures are proportionally bigger than the vintage ones, and the card is bigger, but is the card proportionally bigger to an equal amount that the figures are? Is that me thinking too much about it? Probably, yes. On the back, still vintage inspired. You see all the figures from both Wave 1 and 2. You have the early bird kit that comes with the Darth Vader figure. You have a bunch of legalese. And then some unreadables probably says something like, warning, move all junk away from the desk whenever opening this figure. And to push it off just even a little bit more, this is bigger than I thought it'd be. I thought the Jawa would be a little bit smaller, but nope. Yeah. I'm going to get this open and see exactly what's going on here. And only because some of you enjoy this, some people post comments that they don't dig this part of the video. Some people are happy to see it. So in my brain, it's better to show it than it is to just leave it out altogether. And that is, oh, here it comes. Can you feel it? In the air tonight. Oh, give it to me. Get ready to there you go. Even after all this time, I still try not to rip the card to hell, but you know what? Bullshit. And there we go, all out of the package, and it's the most exciting, unexciting figure that I've bought in a while. I don't know where I'm quite going with that yet. I'm happy to have the figure and it's awesome on the shelf, but there's not a lot you can do with it. Now, first of all, the sculpting looks great. I mean, yeah, we'll get into a little bit of the mobility issues here in a minute, but the all plastic robe allows for the sculpt to bring out a lot of texture to it. The robe itself has just this pattern all over it that it gives you a tactile sensation whenever you're holding it. I don't know where I pulled that term from, but whatever. And then get around to the sleeves, that texture continues on all the way down to the end, and then it gets into a kind of a tattered look where the sleeve is coming apart around the hand. The bandolier with the pockets and the holster and everything, nicely sculpted. It has a nice leather look to it. And then the face itself up inside the hood. It always freaks me out whenever Hasbro sculpts the long head on them, which I guess is kind of accurate, but I don't know. I guess I've seen cosplayers where it's just a head inside the hood. Not a lot to it. The wraps are nice, and then the orange dots look a little bit like M&Ms. I don't know if it's the smoothness of it or the color of it or something, but it's cool. It's okay. It works, but it just doesn't come across as what I picture a Jawa right there, you know. And then for paint, most of it's the plastic color. They've come in and punched in the buttons on the bandolier. They've done a wash to it to make it look more like aged leather. On the face, there's the yellow eyes, and up underneath, there's a nice wash to kind of bring out the dirtiness to it. But the robe down at the bottom, it looks like it's been dragging the ground. It's kind of a paint spray at the bottom to give it that sand look. that worn look. Now here comes everybody's favorite part where I point out a couple of negatives and then go on to say how much I like the figure. Now I talked about the plastic robe, and I've talked about before not really liking cloth on action figures, but lately it's been working for me. There's a lot that I see that I do like, and here they gave the Jawa a whole lower body, but it's completely useless because of the traffic cone of the robe. You can move it around, you can like subtle pose it, especially down at the ankles, but you can't get full use out of that articulation up in there because you just can't get to it. You can't get your hand up in there. And it looks like there's a nice wrapped sculpt up under there that's completely hidden. And then my other just minor gripe, this gun right here goes in the holster. There's a pipe that attaches it to the box and it's stuck on the bandolier. You can't get rid of this unless you just cut it off, which I may end up doing because it just looks weird. Going over articulation, there is a ball at the top of a hinge in the neck going up into the head, but because of the sculpt and how the head lays on the body, you can't get a lot of movement out of it. You can get nice swivel, and you get down a little, no up, a little bit of tilt. The shoulders are hinge and swivel, it comes out, swivels around. The elbows are hinge and swivel, can't quite get 90, and then they swivel. The wrists are hinge and swivel, hinge, swivel, and it runs into a QC issue I've never had on a figure that I can think of. On this wrist, the ring is split. I don't know if it wasn't sonic welded at the factory to close it off to hold the hand in there, but unless I really tug on it, it doesn't come apart, and it pops right back together when I do pull it off. So I have, oops, well, I'm a liar. It stays on. It's just when I'm trying to get it to hold a weapon or move it really far that it pops off. There's a ball in the lower torso. A little bit of movement. I think a lot of it's hindered by this lower robe. And I'm going to guess that there is hinge and swivel at the hips and swivel at the thigh, and it kind of looks like the knee is a hinge and swivel, but I won't know unless I just cut this open. Hinge at the ankle, comes back really nice, goes forward a little bit, and then there's forward facing pin for rocker. You know what? Curiosity got the best of me. I couldn't stand it. I had to know. And there's actually a nice tattered sculpt up under here. You can see that the knees are kind of worn and up on the leg, and it's not the same on the other side. The other side's a little bit more clean. But there is hip movement there. Comes out to about right there. Forward, probably higher than that, but the skirt is still hitting it. Then there is swivel at the thigh. Knee, not so much. It's almost like they knew that it was going to be under the skirt, so nothing there. Actually, it looks like the leg is turned around. You can see the meat of it's on the front. So I'm going to flip that around. I'm going to take the foot, flip it around. Yeah, that looks better. Now the calf muscle's on the back. It doesn't give it much more movement, but yeah, that's not bad at all right there. The other side looks like it is right. I cut it on that side because I figured the bandolier, it's going to be hidden right there. And if nothing else, I'll glue it back together. It's not a biggie to me. For accessories, he comes with a kind of a pistol rifle thing that is attached to the holster. It looks nice. It has a nice wooden stock that's painted on there with a little bit of wash. It has kind of a old-timey gun look to it with a big barrel on the end. And getting it in the holster is kind of a pain in the ass. The holster, I guess, in the package is kind of flat, so you got to kind of press down and then put the barrel in and then shove it through. And then also to put it in the hand, he doesn't really hold it to where it looks like he's shooting it. It kind of just holds the stock. And more on that, because the arms, you can't really have him in a two-handed pose unless it's just gripping around the barrel. And then he has the blunderbuss kind of gun. It kind of cones out to the end, has a short stock, but the whole thing is colored in metal. I almost feel like there should be wood type paint on the stock of this one too. And this is the same thing. He can't really hold it like he's shooting it. He just holds it by the stock, but the left hand seems to hold it a little bit better than the right. For comparison, here he is with the SH Figure Arts Luke. In the package, I thought this Jawa looked a little big, and truthfully, in the movie, there's different sizes between all the Jawas, so I'm good with this one being on the large side. But you put him next to the Black Series R2-D2, who I feel is small already, it looks like a big damn figure. And that's the same with the GameStop exclusive R5D4. But you start getting into the model kit territory, the import territory. This is the Mafex R2D2, and I like this size a lot better. Of course, I like the size of this R2D2 way more than the Black Series one too. It just fits with the rest of my display better. So overall, this works great right here. Really quick, there's the model kit. Again, the size looks fantastic next to each other. And then for giggles, here's a Jawa that I've been using kind of in the background. I think it's the tall one from the 3 3/4 2-pack. And I always kind of fudged it in there thinking, yeah, it's just one of the smaller Jawas. But if you go by the size here, yeah, that may be a little bit too small. Especially when you do this. Well, I don't know. I'll probably still use it. So at the end of the day, I'm happy with this. In fact, I'm super happy to finally have a Jawa for my 6-inch shelf. But at the same time, what do I do with this? I was thinking about army building these, but really when it comes down to it, how much room am I seriously going to dedicate to a figure that looks the same when they all should look kind of different? This isn't like the Stormtroopers or any of the other kind of troopers where you want to buy several of them to have a squad. I want more Jawas on the shelf, but I want them all different heights, different looks, something to differentiate between each one of them. But at the same time, like I said, I'm happy to have a new character on the shelf. I needed a Jawa. I just don't feel like I need more than a couple. Now with the R5D4, it didn't really seem worth the price that they're charging for it. It being a GameStop exclusive, it being a little bit over $20 for a small figure that's mostly reuse. And I kind of thought the same with the Jawa when I first saw it. Now that I have it in hand, though, it being bigger than I thought it was, it being a completely new sculpt, it coming with a couple weapons, and it actually having more articulation than I thought there would be, I feel like this is worth at least the $19.99 that most places are charging for this. Would I prefer a 2-pack? Yes, in a perfect world, yeah, I really would. From what I understand, each series has its own budget, and this is how the budget fell out on this series. So, what are you going to do? I mean, either go without the Jawa or get one and enjoy it and try not to think about how much money you just spent on it. So if you like the review, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the Fwoosh.